Hi, I'm John DeVore. Welcome to the channel. Today's a music review. Nice and simple. And it is a record. Well, it's a backstory here. So the artist that I'm going to talk about is Dave Fiuczynski, known, I guess, also by just a nickname, Fuse. He's an amazing jazz guitar player. But I first discovered him not playing jazz guitar, but playing in a band, a New York band called Screaming Headless Torsos. And this was a band, I would say, considering that it only really ever put out one record, this is a band that had an outsized effect. It had Dave Fiuczynski, I guess, was sort of the leader, guitar player. There was a really remarkable singer that had an incredible array of vocal techniques at his disposal, including Leon Thomas style sort of yodeling and whistling, really remarkable. And another guy who I've since also followed in his musical career, the drummer Jojo Meyer, who is just astonishing. And I will probably do a video at some point on his later work, this band he formed called Nerve. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today we are talking about Dave Fiuczynski. And in specific, we are talking about his album Flam, Blam, Pan-Asian Microjam. I don't know what the Pan-Asian Microjam part of it is. Microjam, I think what Dave is referring to with the Microjam is he is referring to microtonal music. Microtonal music is music whose notes reside outside of or adjacent to the normal Western 12-tone music. So the normal Western canon of notes that you are sort of legally allowed to play consists of this sort of 8-note octave plus some flats and sharps. Everything from Tchaikovsky back, blues, rock. 99.999% of all Western music fits very neatly within the Western canon of this 12-tone music. And it wasn't until sort of mid-20th century that the Western world, and by the Western world here I'm talking about Europe and the US, music from that part of the world did not break out of this 12-tone mode, as far as I know, other than maybe here and there, little cracks in the walls, but until in the 20th century, when some composers and certainly some jazz artists and people started really pushing the envelope with instruments. For example, a normal bass, you cannot play microtonal music very easily because it has frets, and those frets are designed to be in places that line up with the Western music 12 tones. But if you play music on a fretless bass, or if you play violin, cello, viola, or upright bass, these are fretless instruments. And so you can place your fingers anywhere along that fretboard. You can play any note between B and C. You're not stuck with B flat, or C. Your ability is infinite between B and C. All of those microtonal notes in between the B and the C on the Western scale are available to you because it's a fretless instrument, and there's no hard stop to where you end up putting your fingers. Of course, you can retune a guitar to play notes that are outside of these 12 tones, but generally it makes them sound wrong because you can't move the frets. So microtonal music in the 20th century opened up this world of tonal color and timbre. It also opened up a world of new instruments. So as soon as you leave the Western influence instrument-wise, you start to get instruments that are capable and are in fact designed to be microtonal from our perspective as Western listeners. A famous example of that is the sitar. The sitar with all of those frets, and the style of playing that requires this enormous amount of note bending and string bending and stretching. And that sort of helped bring microtonal awareness. But also Middle Eastern instruments, a lot of Middle Eastern instruments have tunings that don't necessarily work within the Western scales. Certainly Eastern singing styles, which bring microtonal elements into the music. And so Dave Fiuczynski, I would say, I mean, if memory serves, I would say after his Screaming Headless Torsos rocking days, he incorporated quite a bit of microtonal information in his work. And I think that's what the microjam is referring to. It would have been much easier, I think, this video if I had researched that first. But I think that's what he's talking about. Of course, birds, when they're singing, birds are not educated in Western conservatories, so they are also not restricting themselves to Western 12-tone music. And so that brings us to what really drew me to this record. So if you look at the cover art there, you will see there are birds. It looks like a loon there, maybe that's a chickadee. This music has field recordings of birds in it, and the music is written really around and built up around bird calls. And therein lies the first examples on this record of microtonal playing, because you'll hear a recording of a bird singing, and then you'll hear there's a microtonal keyboard in there. I'm not sure what kind of a keyboard it is, but it's clearly something that was tuned outside of the sort of the Western paragon. And Dave Fiuczynski playing guitar, mimicking note perfectly these bird songs, and clearly more concerned with accuracy to the birds than he is to accuracy towards any Western canon of note acceptability. He calls this record an homage to J. Dilla and Olivier Messiaen. I always called him Olivier Messiaen. I guess really he is Olivier Messiaen. He's French. So Messiaen is a composer that I really like a lot, and a lot of Messiaen's work is influenced by bird calls. This is a collection of piano music. This is all solo piano, and it is all straight up influenced by various bird calls. It's wonderful stuff. But the Dave Fiuczynski record certainly has echoes of the Messiaen. But what I heard most in this, because this is jazz. It's sort of an avant-garde jazz, but it's not scary avant-garde. It's really, for me anyway, really quite beautiful. He's basing tones and he's basing rhythms on the bird songs. So time signatures and key signatures would probably make a modern composer or sight reader's head explode. But that doesn't apply to me. I enjoy listening to this. And what it reminded me of most is one of my favorite jazz records, and that is this one here. This is Dave Holland, Conference of the Birds. Dave Holland on bass, he's the band leader here. Sam Rivers, flute reeds. Anthony Braxton also reeds and flute. And Barry Altschul, which is he does marimba and various percussion. And there aren't any bird calls in here, but what there are is these amazing musicians imitating birds. And the Conference of the Birds is these various musicians as birds having these amazing dialogues. Absolutely awesome record if you don't know it. It's a real favorite of mine. And this, to me, is like a several decades later update of that. I mean, this was avant-garde in the 80s. Did this come out in the 80s? Let's take a look. When did this come out? 1973. Holy mackerel, I'm old. So this is 2016, I think. So we've got a 40-year difference. It is a nice update while being sort of an homage. Although Fuse doesn't seem to talk about the Dave Holland record. Also, I have to say, oh my God, it's so yummy. More reasons to love vinyl. How delicious is that? I'll tell you, it's very delicious. Anyway, highly recommended. I don't know if the yellow vinyl was a limited thing when it first came out. But I know that this record is around and you can find it. I know that it's also available on downloads. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoy the music. And I will see you at the next one. Thanks. Bye.